Welcome to this episode of the Laundromat Millionaire Show. Before we get started, we wanted to take a moment to highlight one of our special business partners, and that is Magazine Jukebox. If you didn't catch the podcast episode with their founder, I just wanted to let you know that it's out there. It is an awesome service and it's free. In all of our laundromats, we have a code that our customers can scan, giving them access to all kinds of magazines and games. And like I said, it's free. So if you haven't checked it out yet and you have a laundromat or any business where you have customers and you want to provide this service to them, check out Magazine Jukebox at Laundromat Millionaire /services and see the discount.
All right, let's get into our next episode.
You know, my goal is to utilize whatever I'm doing in this industry to try to help everybody else in this industry. I think if we don't figure out a way to do that as independent owner operators, we're going to find ourselves in a lot of hot water. Put pressure on the right people to do the right things for owners.
All right, so Jordan Berry, welcome back to the Laundromat Millionaire Show.
All I have to say is it's about time that
Somebody
somebody serve their
back on
community
here.
better. Come on, I've been clawing my
Hard to
way
believe it's been
back.
like 2 years, man. I can't believe it.
I
Oh my
know.
gosh.
Well, it's funny because, I mean, you mentioned that, before we hit record, and I actually didn't even realize that because
Yep.
we do so many other things. We do
Mhm.
Q&As together. You've been on my podcast
Yep.
recently.
Yeah.
So it feels like we're doing stuff.
Yep.
But I didn't realize that I hadn't actually been on your podcast for a long time.
Part of me
Thanks for having
feels
me back on.
bad because I've been on your podcast 4 times. You've been on mine twice. But then
Yeah.
I don't feel so bad when I realize you have twice the episodes of us.
It's true.
So it's like all relative, right? Like, I mean, when we get to 140 and we're big and grown up like you and Joe Rogan, then you'll have been on the Laundromat Millionaire Show, which I constantly call the Laundromat Resource podcast, 4 times too. Deal?
Yeah. Joe who? Joe
Never heard
Rogan?
Does he own a laundromat?
He one of those other, wannabe podcasters?
He has a YouTube channel with like a few followers, I think. or
Nothing like ours and yours.
That's right.
We're big time, right?
That's right. That's right.
He probably has a few followers, but we have thousands.
At least dozens. At least. And maybe. My mom.
And he probably doesn't make as much money off of his podcast as we do either.
Yeah.
Which is,
Which is
just in
nothing.
case you're wondering, podcasts don't pay.
Anyway,
Yes.
let's get to what we're here for. So,
Yes.
Jordan, it has been 2 years, and in 2 years, a lot has happened. Can you update us? So, last time we talked to you, you had 2 stores. Laundromat Resource was just kind of your one-man show that you were doing. You did have your brother helping some with some of the website design and stuff like that. But tell us what's changed in the life of Jordan Berry.
Yeah, that feels like an eternity ago. Holy cow. Yeah, my brother is like running with that stuff. He's got the marketing stuff down, so he's doing
Killing
that,
it.
which is pretty cool. So I have 1 store right now. So I sold one. Actually, I sold one to a good buddy of mine, multiple podcast guest, Andrew Cunningham, the Human
Yep.
Laundromat Encyclopedia.
I love that nickname. That's great,
I
by the
know.
way.
Well, it's so
No one will ever
fitting.
call me that. I can barely remember my name. No one will ever call me that.
No one will ever call me that because I don't know anything. But and well, I was gonna say only people like our age even know what an encyclopedia is.
That's
so
true.
Yeah, our kids.
He's going to have to call himself the Human Laundromat Google.
yeah, like Wikipedia maybe. Maybe I should go on Wikipedia.
yeah, maybe.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
let's-
Andrew's got a modernized nickname.
Yeah, yeah, which is funny. So I've mentioned that I've sold it here and there, but I don't think I've ever really talked about selling it or why. So this is
I don't know why. I
You're
knew you did. Dave had
getting
told
an
me, that
exclusive.
you sold it and cut
Well, I
down
think
to
that-
1.
Yeah, before you get into it, Jordan, I think it's interesting because I think we should kind of, I think maybe we should, I don't know if shift is the right word. Maybe we talk an awful lot, and I'm speaking to us at Laundromat Millionaire, but it may apply to you too with your podcast. We have guests on and we talk about them going from 1 to 5 to 10 to 30, but people do sell stores, and there is sometimes a really good reason for it. Sometimes it's to free up cash flow to do another project or to buy a building or whatever, and that can be a great business strategy. I think sometimes when we're in business, I think I joked with you that when we built our new superstore, in 2 days, I went from 4 to 5 to 4. So we opened a store and the next day closed our first store, which was only a few miles away. And there was a reason for that. I think when you constantly hear about, the Willifords of the world going to 30 laundromats or whatever, you just think that's what you do. And, obviously our platform and the Laundromat Resource platform is all about helping independent owners to build wealth, create financial freedom, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes, addition by subtraction is a real thing. So I guess that's where I would leave it, that I don't know. I know that logically and intellectually, but I don't know that I ever call attention to that enough on the show for people to like understand when you get that instinct, if it is right to do that, it's okay to go with that. Like sometimes you feel like you're going backwards, I guess is what
sometimes
I'm
less is more,
Yeah.
You might have less stores, but your overall profile is more profitable, or maybe it's more manageable and you get some of your life back or whatever. I'm assuming you got rid of your Fight Club one, right? The one that you had to defend your territory against the gangs, right? Your gang turf one. Is that the one you got rid of? Was it for your own personal health?
No, so here's the thing is, I just found myself standing in the middle of the laundromat one day and I was like, is there no one else? There was no one left to fight. I just fought everybody and it got
Really
boring.
was like Fight
and I
Club.
was like, I'm going to go find a rougher
Fight
neighborhood.
Club was over.
You're like, I'm going to sell it
Another
to someone
town to
like
clean up.
Andrew who can run it well, and I'm going to go find another one to fight for.
Let him do the boring things, like make money.
I hope you didn't tell your wife about this plan, because I met her and she wouldn't be okay with that.
Yeah, she would not be excited about
So
that.
anyway, jokes aside, why did you sell the store? And as much or as little as you want to share of your strategy, and I mean, you seem happier. I hope that's okay to say, less stressed as a friend. I mean, I can say
thanks.
that I think that's the case. So hopefully it was a net positive, right?
Yeah. So just in case anybody doesn't know, I bought my first laundromat about a decade ago. It was a bad experience, lost a bunch of money, and ended up, it's kind of what we're talking about, but ended up kind of in a turf war with a gang and did some literal fighting, and I don't recommend it, and not the typical experience. So don't get too scared off by that. But stabilize that business and everything, over some time. And it's actually what caused me to birth Laundromat Resource, was the very expensive lessons that I learned from that laundromat, and wanting to share those lessons with other people to kind of keep them from having to deal with what I dealt with, both economically and, martial artily.
New word.
Yeah. No, but where it came down to is that laundromat was, relatively stable, but when I was sold that laundromat, I was sold the old narrative of, come in once a week, collect quarters, make a ton of money.
Passive business.
Yeah, and it was the exact opposite. I spent a ton of time there and I lost a bunch of money for a long time, right? But once it kind of stabilized, I, you need to, for anybody out there who's growing, and kind of what you were saying, Dave, was spot on. You need to continually evaluate your portfolio and your time and all that stuff, right? And one of the things I was realizing is my return. I don't remember. I sold it about a year ago, something ish, like that. I want to say it was making a few $1,000s a month, and which was awesome for when I bought it. Well, awesome compared to losing a few thousand a month. But you get to a point where you're like, okay, is this still this? Even though the time investment was much less than it was early on, you got to evaluate your return on time, right? We talk about return on investment a lot, but your return on time also is important. And so, I just got to a point where it made more sense for me to not spend the hour, sometimes hour and a half getting there, and the next, another hour and a half getting home, to go deal with this laundromat, even just collecting money or whatever. It just wasn't, kind of worth my time. And it was an unintended mad. It definitely had more headaches than just collecting money. And so, it just got to a point where I was like, okay, this makes more sense to, hand this off to somebody else who can either take it to the next level, or who, is they're in a phase where the returns it's given is what they're looking for. And so ultimately sold that. And in fact, they actually end up selling my other one, not with the intention of getting out of the industry, but with the intention of kind of ramping up involvement in the industry and maybe buying more down the line here. So haven't fully committed to that path yet, but that is something I'm sort of seriously considering right now. And it would be a change of strategy for me. And it benefits me in multiple ways, right? Obviously, owning laundromats is, financially beneficial and stuff. But also, if I want to continue to help people in this industry, I want to continue to be on the, towards the leading edge of what we're doing in this industry. But I think I need to be willing to experiment a little bit and try some new things and maybe we can talk about sort of directions this industry is going in here in a little bit, but that's sort of some of my thought process of going sort of forward from here and what I'm doing. The other side of that, selling that laundromat is not having to go out there a few times a week, and all the time that required gives me more time with Laundromat Resource and to be doing, some of these things that I think, part of the impact that I want to have is I want to help as many people in this industry as possible to get in the industry, but also to thrive in this industry and to help, shape the narrative of the direction this industry is going. I think we're moving in a good direction right now in a lot of ways. And I want to continue to have discussions that keep us moving forward. Cause I think we're playing catch up right now. Cause we've had a bad reputation in our industry for a really long time. Overall in general, when people think laundromats, it's not the most pleasant thought always. And so, but I think we're moving in a really good direction. And so having the time and space to have conversations sort of nationwide, worldwide, even on best practices so that we can be sharing those things. It's a big part of why I did the podcast, right? So we can all start sharing best practices. Right. And, something you talk about a lot, Dave, is, elevating the industry. And one way to do that is, to help each other do better and serve our communities more. And part of, any tiny little bit of legacy that I can leave, I would love to just play a minuscule role in a whole bunch of laundromat owners' experience so that, maybe one thing that is said on my podcast or one idea that's prompted because of, a YouTube video or a blog post, whatever it is, help somebody serve their community better. And that community will never even know anything about me or anything. But if I feel like I'm helping people make a difference in their communities, I will, even if it's small, I'll feel super good about that. So that's sort of the other side of selling that laundromat. One is, does it make time and financial sense for me? And I got to a point where it just didn't, it didn't move the needle as much as other things, both with my time and financially. And so, it's time to kind of let that go. And I sold that to Andrew Cunningham, like I said, and, that business is doing great now, probably better than when I was running it. And, and so I'm down to the one right now and, maybe down another one in order to sort of build back up. I'm not sure yet.
There's nothing better than free. Ever heard that before? Well, it's not true. You know what your laundromat customers like even better than free? It's fast. That's right. They want to save time more than they want to save money in most cases. They want to get in and out of your laundromat as fast as possible, and they'll pay more for that experience. We're proof of that here in Cincinnati. That's why we added HM Company drain troughs into our newest store in Cincinnati. While they may never know why, your customers will love that your washers all drain better and faster than with old school drain pipes. As if that wasn't enough, every HM drain trough is made in the USA, so they ship in only a few weeks and everyone is custom made just for you and your project. If you want to provide your customers with a top of the industry experience in your store, then contact your distributor to order your HM Company drain trough today or visit draintroughs.com.
So a couple of things based on what you said. The first thing I want to highlight is I think a lot of owners do this, is a lot of times as owners, we don't take out a salary and you hesitate to get rid of what you consider a profitable business. But if you're not taking a salary, and let's say you're a profitable business, your profit is $100,000 a year, whatever. You can put in any number you want there. But you also have to consider, is the time you spend on that business worth that $100,000? Because basically that profit then is your salary, minus the taxes and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But you have to think about, just because it's profitable, is it truly profitable? If you think about, that's my salary, really. Look at my time. I like how you really emphasize that. Is my time worth what that profit is? Because at the end of the day, maybe it isn't profitable once you factor in your time.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think that's great. I didn't mean to cut you off,
No,
but
you're good.
I think you brought up something really good. And one of, I don't hear anybody talking about this in our industry. I hear it in other industries, but one of my goals, and I think maybe one of all of our goals, should be to increase our value, like our hourly rate, like what our hourly rate is worth. And that's something that I'm intentionally trying to do, is do higher value tasks, solve higher value problems for more people, not necessarily because I want to make more money necessarily. I mean, obviously, hey, look, we're all trying to, make money and all that stuff too. But, that dollar per hour number, in my mind, at least, it's just it's a measure of how much value you're providing to the world. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I love kind of what you're saying, because I don't hear people talking about our dollar per hour value and how we can increase that. And even as laundromat, it can be kind of difficult to think about how do we do that as laundromat owners. But one thing that, Dave and I talk about a lot, and Carla, I know you've been in on these conversations too, is, we're talking about how do we streamline our businesses? How do we, use automation? How do we set up systems and processes? Part of that is to free ourselves up time-wise, so we have time to do other things like,
Like
pay ridiculous
Laundromat
amounts of money
Resource
to
and Laundromat
start a
Millionaire.
podcast, and you know what I mean? Like, so part of it's that, but also part of it is so that we can free ourselves up to solve bigger problems, to work on bigger things, to increase our, our dollar per hour, if you will, tasks that we're working on. And that's something that I'm intentionally trying to do. And I heard, Peter Diamandis, he's serial entrepreneur. He's awesome. You should check him out. He's got a lot of great stuff, great podcast. He's in a bunch of different spaces, longevity space, all this stuff. I think it was him, and he was like, before it was even reality, I said $5,000 an hour is that's what I feel like I'm worth. So anything below that, I'm going to outsource to other people. I'm going to hire other people. I'm going to, or eliminate it, or whatever. I'm not going to do things that are $5,000. Now, that's extreme, right? Probably a lot of us are like, $5,000 an hour, that's ridiculous.
That'd be awesome.
But I think that there's something to thinking like that, right? And, that's where, we start talking about, owners who sit in their laundromats all day. There's zero wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that business model. You can do that, and you can make more money doing that because you're paying yourself a salary, like Carla was saying. Or you can hire somebody for, 15, 17, 20, whatever it is, dollars an hour, and spend your time working on $25 an hour tasks, $50 an hour tasks, $100 an hour tasks, $500 an hour tasks, and those things. And we should continually be trying to level ourselves up in that way. In my opinion, that's my goal. And I think that's sort of that entrepreneur spirit. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not just like I'm trying to increase the amount of money I make. Not that we're not, as entrepreneurs, trying to increase our money, but I like how you put it. You're trying to increase the value you bring. It's not about how much you actually cost, but you want to be bringing that dollar worth of value to people. Like we talk about this all the time with our workshops. Our workshops are expensive, but we really pride ourselves on working hard to make sure at the end people feel like they got that and more value than what it cost. But it's that bringing the value that I like you emphasize.
Yeah, totally. And and it comes down to like, look, I could go, work at wherever, a minimum wage job, wherever it is. I could go do that, and there's zero wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. And this mindset I'm talking about is not for everybody, I don't think. But for me, I can go work that $20 an hour job or whatever it is, but just about anybody can work that job. And so the dollar per hour is not a measure of how much you're worth. It's a measure of the skill set that you have and how much that skill set is worth and the value that skill set brings to everyone else, right? And so thank you for kind of help clarifying that, because it's not about the dollar per hour. It's just a sort of a measure in my mind of, I want to continually increase my skills, develop my skill set, add new skills, and use those skills to do valuable things for myself and my family, but also for other people.
I mean, God blessed us all with very different talents. I mean, that's a big part of the Bible, is using those talents, using that skill set to basically bring value to other people as well. And I think that's what you're emphasizing there. I love that.
Totally.
Yeah. Amazing. And I'm so glad we got to talk about this, because when we say initially like, oh, we're gonna talk about Jordan Soda Laundromat, I don't know that I fully understood that the thought process and the teaching lessons for our audience, we're going to go down this path. But I can tell you that I do coaching calls all the time, and I'm sure you do too. And I tell people, at the end of the day, if you have an asset that you own today, would you buy it today? If you knew it took the time that it took, and you knew that it would take, let's say this laundromat is worth $250,000, and you had $250,000 cash. If it's paid off, you do, right? You have equity. It's just not liquidated. If you had $250,000 and you knew what you knew today, not 9 years ago or 15 years ago when I got the industry, if you had the knowledge, the experience, and the baseline, the value that you're worth today, you had $250,000 in cash, and you knew you could put that $250,000 into this investment vehicle, and it would take 5 hours a week of your time, would you do that? If the answer is yes, then you should keep that asset. If the answer is no, you should liquidate that asset. Now, it's not quite that simple, but I mean, you get the concept, right? And the mindset, I think I really want to call attention to. I mean, I hear most people like refer to this as like the fixed versus the growth mindset, right? So there's nothing wrong with either one, by the way. But if you're Dave Menz and you have a growth mindset and you want to always be growing and be a better version of yourself tomorrow than you were today, in this case, as an entrepreneur, then there is something wrong with being lazy and staying where you are and not progressing and not bringing more impact and mission and vision to either the industry or just the world as a whole, which I know we all agree with that. But when I talk to owners that sometimes feel really guilty, I think is the word I would use, that they own this asset that they kind of in their heart of hearts don't regret buying. I don't know if you regret yours. Your story's a little different, but I don't know if you regret buying it or not. But would you buy it today? If the answer is no, you should liquidate that. And you talked about it, you take the time and the liquidity, the cash that you have from that asset, and you can invest that time and cash in other ways, whether it's Laundromat Resource or, buying your house on Hawaii or whatever those things are. I know that's a big thing for you. So, I mean, whatever that looks like for you, I hope we're making sense. And I definitely want to move on, but I think there's a bigger lesson here than just like Jordan sold a laundromat. It's obviously you do a lot of coaching and you do a lot of growth too. I mean, you've grown a ton in the 3 years I've known you. For our audience out there, I mean, I think we're all three kind of saying the same thing. Hopefully there's a lot of lessons in here, but I know on our podcast, we don't talk about enough, I'll call it addition by subtraction, which I know that can make people feel uncomfortable sometimes. But at the end of the day, I talked about it offline, but we went from 4 to 5 to 4 laundromats in 2 days. When we built our superstore, we owned our first store that had kind of become sort of our stepchild, because it was a good business when we bought it. It was a great investment. We leveraged it, but it had been paid off. The equipment was paid off. Our lease was up. We could sign a new lease, but we bought a property, 2 acres, that we talked about on your podcast, a couple miles away, much better location, much better investment. What I tell my coaching clients is we had outgrown that business, right? So it no longer made sense to own it. But when I bought it in 2010, I don't regret it at all. A lot of sweat equity went into creating that equity in the business, but I don't regret it at all. So I think we just need to call attention to that a little bit more. I think we're all saying the same thing. Any last thoughts on that topic before we move on?
Well, the other thing you mentioned was pivoting to possibly even selling another one and maybe getting into an even bigger business model. I'm curious about that. I don't know how much you're willing to share, but I do think that as a coach and as a Laundromat Resource, I think that's going to be a very valuable experience for you to be able to help people and share. But then also my concern is, won't that make it hard to still do Laundromat Resource? Just like thinking, I don't know, I want to hear about that. So what's this new venture, or how much will you share?
Yeah, I'll share as much as I can. It's not all kind of put together, but a couple of guys and I from the industry have been chatting a little bit about sort of putting something together, put together a larger portfolio of laundromats, and there's a few sort of objectives with that. One is to build a portfolio of laundromats, and just for having a portfolio of laundromats, because we're industry guys and that's what we like to do. So that's sort of one aspect of it. But we also, and kind of all of us are united sort of on this front. We're also interested in utilizing that potentially to help the industry in other ways. So one thing is this. I think that we are moving in the right direction when it comes to data collection and data analysis in our industry and making decisions based off of that. Not to get too controversial, I think that there are manufacturers that are doing that a lot better than us as individual owners right now, and I don't like the sound of that. But I do think that we're moving in the right direction. But I think that there's some different ways to start looking at some of the data and the analytics. And one of the things that I've realized is that even with the consulting that I do and just the other people in the industry that I talk to, I just don't have access to enough of the right kinds of data to be able to do anything meaningful with that. So I think having a larger portfolio will give a larger sample size for some data that I would hopefully be able to just share with people, some of the findings and some of the ways that we're looking at data and how that's impacting the way that we're running our businesses. So something like that is interesting to me. I have some fairly well documented gripes with the industry right now. And so, being able to utilize a larger portfolio to either put pressure on the right people to do the right things for owners, like, for example, disclosing prices transparently for machines, or potentially bringing a new player into the game that is, a good thing for owners, where prices are transparent and that kind of thing. So what that looks like, I mean, that's a whole other venture, and I don't know exactly what all that looks like or if that's even possible, but those are some of the things that we're kind of kicking around over here with a portfolio, not just putting together a portfolio for the sake of it, but really looking to provide some new tools, new resources, if you will, Laundromat Resource, you know what I mean? For other owners. And, kind of no matter the direction we go, like my goal and sort of my heart is, whether we get 10 laundromats or 300 laundromats, my goal is to utilize whatever I'm doing in this industry to try to help everybody else in this industry. And that's sort of been the goal from the beginning. And I will continue to be the goal as long as I'm sort of in the industry.
Would you like to make more money from your laundromat? Would you like those machines you're paying for to have more turns per day? Do you offer wash, dry, fold services or pickup and delivery laundry services? If not, would you like to? Whether you do or not, we have an amazing opportunity for you in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yeah, you've probably heard about it, guys, but it's our wash, dry, fold, pickup, and delivery workshop. And to answer your first question, yes, it is for drop-off laundry, wash, dry, fold, and pickup and delivery. So if you're doing any of those things, this workshop is going to help you tremendously. But the truth is, we were pretty so-so laundromat owners and so-so successful until we launched drop-off laundry and pickup and delivery. And being able to what I call optimize your laundromat to generate more profit and more revenue out of the existing facility, that's the key to taking your life from good to great, financially speaking, with laundromats. And that's what made us Laundromat Millionaires.
You don't have to just listen to us. Listen to what some of our past attendees have to say about our Wash, Dry, Fold, Pickup and Delivery workshop in Cincinnati, Ohio.
It was the best workshop I've attended in over 25 years. And what you guys have put together is nothing short of phenomenal. I think that you guys have put together both strategic and tactical systems that will make an individual who wants to own the laundromat profitable within months, not years.
Was the workshop worth the investment? Without a doubt, it was definitely worth the investment. So not only did we have two very packed days with Dave and Carla and their team, both in the classroom and touring the facilities, but we also came away with this extensive 100-page handbook. And then after the workshop was completed, I received a bunch of electronic performers and templates that we've been able to use since the workshop. Every day since the workshop, I've found myself referring back to either those electronic tools or the handbook that we received. So,
was it worth the investment? Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I cannot say that enough. This was such a blessing, and I am so very grateful that Dave and Carla put this together and are sharing their knowledge and experience with others to have this to grow their business and to become more successful. Thank you, guys.
So are you interested? Go to laundromatmillionaire.com to learn more and see where you can register.
Talking about, so you mentioned how you see this movement towards really focusing on the data now, the owners focusing on the data. And I know we've become much more into our data than we were initially, for sure. What other trends? This is kind of to you and Dave both, because you all are more active with consulting and in all the group chats and all that kind of stuff. You all talk to owners all the time. What kind of trends do you see happening in the laundromat industry?
I think what I love about what you said and we're doing with some things we're doing is it's not always about the data. I mean, you have to have the data. That's the core. It's what you do with the data. So you said something that I've been saying that I don't think too many people are doing, and I don't know that we'll ever get many people to do it, but we're on board for it. It's sharing the data.
Yeah.
It's what are you doing with the data? I mean, your platform was launched and is all about the independent operator, you know, the people that are actually the mom and pops running laundromats. And ours is too. That's one of the many connections that we have, right, via the industry. And, you know, perfect example for us, I'll share, you know, people probably know about the Hydro Perfect Pour that we installed in our store. And I have a pretty good relationship, a really good relationship with the team at Alliance. And I've been able to do a couple things that kind of move the needle in my estimation. One of them is go to Alliance directly, the executive team, and kind of convince them that this is a part of the future of modernized laundromats. And they need to get on board with how their controls interact and behave with not just Hydro Perfect Pour, which if you're not familiar with that, we have an episode on that. Go check it out.
It's a direct injection system.
Yeah, we'll link that in the show notes and everything. But not only that, but so that's impactful, and they love that. They love that I've came to them and kind of asked for or challenged them in that way, because that's why they build touch controls. Is we don't know what the future is, we don't know what holds, but we know that these controls are very intuitive, right? They can be a living, breathing organism and modernize and change as our industry shifts and changes, give a better customer experience and build more profit centers. But another thing we're doing as we collect this data with kind of partnered with Hydro is we're going to share this data. You know, obviously Hydro wants to share this data to justify ROIs and to sell their product because they believe their product will make us more money. And we believe those things too. But us as independent owners, just me and Carla, we're going to collect that data from this product, I'll call it. You're talking much bigger, of course, but from this product, and share that so that other people understand very basic things like an ROI. If I make an investment of X and I can expect a 50% adoption and I can expect this price, and I'm one guy is what I always say, but I'm happy to share the data. I think we talked about the fixed growth mindset earlier. It kind of goes back to like the scarcity growth mindset, or a scarcity abundance mindset, where you want to keep everything to yourself. It's kind of the same thing as well. So I love that is what you see as your future. What I would say to anyone that's listening or watching that has that on their heart, and I know we both have friends that do, you can do it independently, you can do it collectively with a group, you can do it in a lot of different ways if you just kind of challenge yourself. But I said it on your podcast, and I'll say it again, we don't need other people's permission, right? We don't need the manufacturer's permission, we don't need distributors' permission, but this drives the industry forward, and it gives independent operators the opportunity to do things that other companies may be doing, whether it's in a franchise or whatever it looks like. They can do these things because they're creating this cohort, right? This franchise community, if you will, and they'll share internally, hey, if you do this, you do this. But let's be honest, they're not going to share that with us, and I wouldn't expect them to. Well, one of the things that I love about what we do at Laundromat Millionaire and you do at Laundromat Resource is we're independent. And so we're not trying to build a franchise, and we're not, while we do build companies and we do charge for services, we're also trying to innovate and drive the industry forward. So I know that was a little bit long-winded. Nobody would expect anything different from Dave, but now, Jordan, you may have the floor.
So Jordan, what trends do you see besides data and now people actually collecting data and sharing it to impact each other? What do you see happening in the industry? And what do you see for the future of the industry?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll make a strong statement when it comes to data. Is I think if we don't figure out a way to do that as independent owner operators, we're going to find ourselves in a lot of hot water. Because like I said, manufacturers are doing this on a much larger scale than we're doing it right now, and probably will ever do it unless we can figure out a way to do that together. So that data, it just becomes really important. I mean, there's entire industries where the valuations of companies are based solely on the data that they have. You think of like Facebook or Google or any, like these are, you're just data mining companies. That's what they are. And so in advertising, but that I think is something that not only should we do that, I think we have to figure out a way to do that, or we're going to be in hot water in the long term as independent owner operators. Why do you say that?
Maybe I'm just ignorant or naive here. Why do you think we would be in hot water if we don't do the data ourselves? What's the fear?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of a good analogy, which I cannot at the moment, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of Moneyball. Have you guys seen the movie Moneyball? Brad Pitt.
Yep.
So the premise behind Moneyball is the Oakland A's had relatively small budget.
The problem we're trying to solve is that there are rich teams and there are poor teams. Then there's 50 feet of crap, and then there's us. It's an unfair game.
And they came in and they started analyzing data. They started looking at data in a different way than everybody else, in a way that optimized the performance of their team. And so they moved away from star-studded cast, and they said, okay, who's going to get on base? And if we can get the right people who are going to get on base consistently over time, we're going to win statistically. You think of like a casino. It's a similar type of thing. They're looking at data in a way that the person who's just throwing money in the slot machine or who's just at the roulette table is not looking at the data that way. And guess who comes out on top every single time? It's the people who have the data and who have the ability to analyze the data and utilize it in a way that gives them the advantage. So if you think about like a manufacturing company who, is putting out machines that have data tracking now that you can download their apps and stuff. Well, Now they have the data from many, many multiple laundromats all over the place. We've already seen where they're putting in their own laundromats across the street or down the street from their customers because they've seen the performance of those customers and they have that data. Well, guess what? That's not going to get less. That's going to get more over time. And not only that, but they're going to have not just know where to put stuff, but they're going to know what's working in multiple different markets in terms of price points. And we're, to some extent, we're all playing a guessing game on the price thing, right? Like the best of us are calculating, okay, how much does it cost us to do a pound of laundry for self-serve, pick up and deliver? The best of us, and that's a small minority, and then trying to build in a margin there, right? The rest of us are just saying, well, what's that guy doing and what's that guy doing, and I'll be right around in there, right? Like that's just the reality of it.
Yep.
And we're gonna get steamrolled by manufacturing companies and franchises. And again, I don't have anything against any of these, companies per se, but what I am saying is, look at the Oakland A's that killed it when they introduced this new way of looking at the data. Look at casinos that kill it because they have a way of looking at data that we're not doing. And even for us, like casinos I think maybe are a great example, because when you go to a casino, every movie, every book about casino, everybody knows the casino has the advantage, but we keep gambling anyway. So, you know what I mean? Like I was just in Vegas last week. I just watched people putting their retirement money in slot machines, and I'm like, you're not going to win. Like, what are you doing? Right? And we do it anyways. And I don't want the same thing to happen for our industry, where we're just keeping our heads down. Meanwhile, everybody else, who's collecting this data is just stacking the advantage in there.
I think I get it. So you're saying if we don't get on the data ourselves as independent owners, we're going to lose our ability to compete, because other people are going to come in that do have the data backing, that are charging prices where they know that they're making a profit. If we're just back here charging a price because we think that's what people will pay, and maybe we're charging a price where we're not even making any money at the end of the day, which we've coached many pickup and delivery people that are doing pickup and delivery for free or even at a loss because they haven't calculated those costs. So if we don't look at the data, we're going to get left behind, is what you're saying. And somebody else is going to come in and be the competitor, and we won't be able to compete.
Yeah. And not only that, but like the data we're looking at now. So like you think of our like main key performance indicator, KPI, our main one in our industry for self-serve laundry is turns per day. It's such a crude measurement. You know what I mean? It's so crude. We're saying, hey, on average, this store's doing 4 turns per day. And you're like, well, okay, but now I have no idea how many are using 20 pounds versus 40 pounds versus 80 pounds. I have no idea, you know what I mean? Like it's so crude. And again, we're getting better. We're moving in the right direction, but it's just so crude that it's like we're using stone tools, and, the Iron Age has happened.
Nothing about if it's even profitable. You could be doing 10 turns per day, but if you're charging 10 cents a machine, guess what? That got all spent on the utilities to run that machine.
Right.
Like,
and
if you don't know the cost behind it, the turns per day means nothing. Like, not that it's not a valuable data point, but it's one data point. It's not the data point,
Yeah.
I want to point out a few things that kind of popped in my head, and then we'll move on. I want to hear about what you're doing at Laundromat Resource too. So I think if I were listening to this, which I guess I technically am, listening to this podcast, I'm listening and participating. mostly participating.
You look like you were kind of checked out there.
I'm mostly talking.
You napping with your eyes open?
I have 2 mouths in one ear. So I just, if I were listening to this, I think I would be looking for a little bit of like, okay, like kind of like it sounds like you're talking about theory, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. But a few things that popped in my head that decisions we already make to promote this environment, I guess I would call it. One of them is obsessively connecting with other owners. I'm a big fan of that, and I'm an extrovert, so I like people, and I want to serve and help people, and I love meeting new people too. So that's certainly part of it. But a big part of connecting with other owners that aren't competitors of mine, which there's only 10 that are or whatever in my market, is we can talk to each other. just one-on-one. We can share information. They call that a cohort, but we can be quote unquote on the same team, right? And obviously you do that with your podcast. We do that with our podcast, sharing stories and any guests that come on and so on and so forth. So I think that's, if you're sitting at home thinking, well, how do we, let's call it, start the process of connecting together? I think it's actually just building relationships and listening to podcasts and volunteering. Every person that comes on your show or our show isn't paid, so they're volunteering their information. And are they going to share maybe some dollars and cents? Some people do, some people don't. That's fine. But sharing best practices, tips, speaking at conferences, putting on our own workshops, those types of things can really go a long ways. But I want to dig a little deeper. I think we, as independent owners ourselves, should recognize some of the things you just said. And I'm not a hater of manufacturers, distributors, whatever, but they are the behemoths, for lack of a better term. And I agree with what you said regarding data and franchises and all those things. And I don't think they're the devil. I'm not suggesting that, but I do think they are competitors, and I think they are doing a better job than us. So what are some things we can do? One of the things I think we can do as independent owners is support the third-party vendors that are trying to help us improve data. And there's, I would argue, all of them, like outside of the manufacturers. I mean, I have a great relationship with Sense. I work very in depth with them, but even through Laundromat Resource, I already did it again. Even through Laundry Boost, I can't get it out of my head. Even with Laundry Boost, we're connecting, even though I have a partnership with Sense, we're connecting with other software companies and hardware companies that are, because it's in the best interest of their clients, helping us. That is outside of, I guess you would call it, a manufacturer or distributor relationship. Mm-hmm. I can have let's call it a data-oriented relationship with Sense, because they're a third party. They're not quote unquote embed. I know they have their own partnerships, but embed with manufacturers.
They're not building laundromats anywhere.
Correct. They're not building laundromats. They're not competitors. So I think that's, and there's a lot of idiosyncrasies in there, but I think that's something that we should just consider. And I think the last thing is, and I'm going to shamelessly plug you and our platform and others, is the people and the companies that are stepping out. I think you should support them, whether it is a software company, a hardware company, a marketing company, whatever it is, that are stepping out and trying to elevate the industry, is what I always say. They're putting their money on the line. They're putting their sweat and equity on the line. You're talking about, liquidating a retail business that's profitable. And I know you're investing your time and probably resources into making Laundromat Resource a better version of itself. I know that's, at least time-wise, I know for sure you've talked about that you're able to spend more time on Laundromat Resource, and you've hired a team and different things like that. And we can talk about that in a minute. We're doing the same thing. I mean, we're not selling our stores, but we're doing the same thing and investing. We built a team and we're spending basically all of our time in Laundromat Millionaire. So support those people. I mean, if you can't support them financially, encourage them, send them messages. Trust me, we get enough hate. So it's pretty cool to get messages where hey, this podcast really made a difference. So I don't know. Those are just a few thoughts that I have. If I were sitting at home, I'd be like, what are a few, and we could go much deeper. We don't have time for it. But I think those are a few things that all of us laundromat owners can do, is rather than putting up walls of, oh, you use this company and I use that company, so we can't be friends. Or you use this manufacturer and I use this manufacturer, so we're enemies, which is, in some ways, the big companies, they do encourage that. They don't want company from software X being friends with software Y, because you might convince your friend that used software X to switch over to software Y software. I'm not saying they all do it, but I think we need more of that abundance mindset of where we're connecting together. And I don't know.
Realize we're on the same team. All of us independent owners, we're on the same team.
Not only
regardless of who we use, we're a team.
We have to be, because I agree. I think we're going to be squished like cockroaches, and it may be, in our lifetime. It may be 20 or 30 years from now. It might not be tomorrow, but I think we have an obligation to do that. And I know I and you and Carla, I mean, we have the heart to do that. So I just wanted to point that out.
So Dave mentioned in that big spiel,
I tuned out a little bit there.
I'll edit it down some. But Dave mentioned Laundromat Resource and some of the changes that you've had there and how much your team has grown. And I know when we had you on before, you were kind of a one-man show, other than you had your brother doing some marketing, but really all the consulting was you. And you have a whole team of consultants now. You have people doing social media for you. Can you tell us a little bit about your platform, Laundromat Resource, as far as what resources you have? And people often say that we only do things for money. So I want to hear about some of the free resources you have for people who don't have the money to invest but are just looking for some help. And then also what you have if they do have the money to invest for a little more. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, just real quick on the only selling stuff, number one, I'll speak for myself, but I think I'm kind of also speaking for you guys. Most of what we do is free, and there's not really, I don't think there's really any information that you need in order to be successful in this business or to buy successfully your first laundromat that you can't get for free between our platforms.
Yeah.
Aside from there's other places you can get information too. I mean, I would argue it's probably an inferior quality to, ours. But,
I recommend starting with the ones that start with Laundromat.
Yeah.
Laundromat Resource, Laundromat.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. But, even just between our platforms, and they're not, I wouldn't say either one of us have comprehensive information yet, right? Like we're still growing all that stuff and building stuff. So all the information you need is free between our two platforms to be successful in the business and to be, to get into the business. Now, when you talk about wanting to optimize things, or you talk about, specific issues that are coming up, or you talk about wanting to shorten time frames, that's where the paid stuff comes in. So I just wanted to say that. And, I'll just throw out just for myself, and I know you guys had a lot of similar stuff. Like, first of all, I've never been paid a dime for the podcast. I know you guys don't really get paid much either for the podcast. And so that's not a moneymaker for either one of us. That's free. You guys, anybody listening is not paying for this, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, look, we've made very little. We've maybe paid off this microphone, not his, but maybe this one.
This one we have in layaway.
That's right. It's on layaway. That's right. Yeah. And, so, I mean, obviously, Laundromat Resource podcast, that's free. And that's been a few years. We've got a blog with a ton of free guides and blog posts and information. I know you guys got stuff too. So that's free. You can go check that out. I want to point out, and maybe I shouldn't say this because maybe people will be bummed that that's not available anymore, but I did 1.5 years of free consulting calls to where I got to where I was doing 20 to 25 calls a week. And that's the only reason I started charging was because I couldn't keep up with the free calls. So
same story.
Yeah, I know. It's out, like we've been given for a really long time now. Both of us, and we're still given, right? Still tons of free information. And, I'll point out, for my platform and a little bit for your platform, probably the same, too, is a lot of it is we're also just a platform, right? And not all of the information, I'd say probably at least half on my end, at least, of the information is not me giving free information. It's just me having a platform where people come on the podcast and give information, right? And like that is, or write a blog post or whatever the case may be, that in my mind is just as valuable, if not more valuable than all the other stuff, right? So
what about, I know you have like a premium membership. What's behind the paywall? Why would I want to become a premium member?
Yeah. Well, real quick, one other thing I want to mention, if you're thinking about getting in the business, there's a free, just 3-lesson course. It'll give you pretty much all the basics you need to get into that first laundromat there. So that's on the website too. So check out that free course. That's another freebie for you there. Yeah. So in the community, in the membership Laundromat Resource Pro community, it's a community of people who have self-selected and saying, hey, I'm serious about this industry. Either I own laundromats and I'm serious about growing my business, and whether that's through optimizing their laundromats or scaling out, or you're brand new and you're trying to buy that first laundromat. So it's a self-selected community that's decided to come together. And kind of the original intent was like, hey, I've got some premium tools and stuff that I've developed. I've got a few calculators and analysis calculator. I just came out with a pretty cool pro forma calculator. And then I also just came out with a very interesting, talking about data, a very interesting pickup and delivery / wash, dry, fold calculator that will help you determine how much it costs you per pound of laundry to actually process it. And then you can implement how much of a margin you want in there. And it'll tell you, what your price point should be. So whether that's for your overall price point or if you're quoting commercial customers or something like that, you can utilize that. So that's pretty cool too. So it was originally like premium tools. And then there was like, I've done like 100 webinars or probably more than that. But all those are in there, and so there's some tools and kind of resources in there that are, just a little premium. But then it kind of evolved into more of like a community. And so there's a lot of interaction that happens.
Are there like chats and stuff?
There's chat. It's almost like a social media type feel there. But the other big thing that I introduced, honestly I was a little nervous about introducing. I didn't know how well it would play, but it's been very, very good and very helpful for a lot of people. The people who have decided to do it is I implemented mastermind groups, and it's just a small group of 4 or 5 people who commit to meeting together regularly to share data and problem solve with each other. Encourage this this whole entrepreneurship thing, business ownership is like a roller coaster of ups and downs, and so having people to encourage you to make sure you're following up on the tasks you committed to doing and problem solving together, it's been very cool. So
well, I just want to point out, I'm not intimately involved in the details of what you do at Laundromat Resource, but I definitely see the things you do, and even the content alone. I mean, the podcast is one thing, but you have all kinds of micro content out there, and I don't think people realize that takes time and money and energy of someone to cut those things up and distribute those things. And yeah, part of it is to attract them to the platform so that they know other tools are available. But also part of it is just to help. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, it's a great way to connect in a lot of ways, the forum that you have, the free Facebook page that we have, things like that. So, if you're not familiar, if you've been hiding under a rock and you never heard of Laundromat Resource, go to the website, laundromatresource.com.
Brand new website, by the way.
When did that launch? I haven't
it
even
launched
checked it out.
Last week was a bit of a nightmare, so it was great.
The first week usually is.
It's just all the little.
But you cleaned up all the bugs, so now we can send traffic your way, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So go check out the website. There's a lot of free information on there. I know you even have some free tools and even have a free membership.
Yep.
Where they could just sign up. And I know you send out, is it weekly newsletters that you send out, which just have really I get that. So you get, very convenient links to a new podcast or a focus podcast or whatever. So he has an email list you can join. And by the way, we do too. So we're always, drawing attention to new partnerships, new companies, different things like that we're doing too. And by the way, I mean, we're just talking about us in Laundromat Resource today, but I just want to point out again before we close that if this is something you think you have the authenticity and you have the knowledge and the heart to create your own version, whether it's, just a YouTube channel or just a blog or just write a book or whatever it is, man, we need laundromat owners to share with each other. And I know the history of our industry has been quite the opposite of that. That we tend to be very internal and don't share information. We're afraid somebody is going to get our magic secret or whatever. I can tell you that, for the last 2 or 3 years that we've been doing Laundromat Millionaire, there really isn't anything that we don't share publicly, privately, workshops, coaching, whatever. And I can tell you that it hasn't gotten back to anyone that it would affect us at all yet. I mean, so it's, we have, 30,000 followers.
Or if it has gotten to them, they
at least can't execute. And that's part of it too, is you can have the information, but you have to be able to take that information and go execute on it. The odds of people doing that are pretty slim. And so, just my little spiel there. I'm grateful that you inspired us to do this, and we're trying to do our part to drive the industry forward, support you, proud of you, all those things. But we want to continue, and I know you do too, continue to inspire others. It's not for everybody. It's probably not even for most people. But the people that it is right for, go chase your dreams, go share information authentically. Let's connect.
So Jordan, we're about out of time here. Do you have any last thoughts you would like to add?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me on. I appreciate all you guys do. And I know, it's tough. It's tough doing what we do because, it's a lot of work for one, but you're also, whenever you put yourself in front of people, you open yourself up, right? Vulnerability and authenticity they go kind of both ways, right? When you're people, the reason more people aren't authentic and vulnerable is because you can get hurt that
There's
way.
a price to pay.
And I know we have been, wounded in different ways by being online, but I think you guys have just such great hearts that you guys are doing what you're doing despite that, because it helps so many people. And I just, want you guys to know, I recognize that. I see what you guys do. And even if even if other people don't see that, some other people don't see that, I see that. And I know a lot of people do see that, but sometimes those negative voices can be louder. So, for all of us, I guess kind of closing is, let's be a positive community, a positive industry where we're encouraging each other. Do we have to agree with each other? No, we shouldn't. We can't grow if we all agree with each other, right? All the time. But, we should be positive. We should be, pushing each other to be better in positive and helpful ways. So let's do that. And I appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me on the podcast. It's a lot of fun as always.
All right, listen, everyone back home, thank you for joining us today. I am going to do everything I can to get Jordan on this podcast a little bit more often because he's a rock star. Go check out laundromatresource.com for my beautiful wife, Carla, Dave Menz in Cincinnati, Ohio. We'll see you next time for another episode of the Laundromat Millionaire Show. Take care, everyone.